Chris Ballard's under a bit of duress, having kind of botched whatever this is with Jonathan Taylor. Jim Irsay, partially responsible. Jonathan Taylor, partially responsible. This has not worked out the way that Chris Ballard and the Indianapolis Colts would like it to. That is the focus of Chris Ballard's comments today.
All right, thank y'all. This week it's always hard. It's never easy. Anytime and we talk about this every year, but like anytime you cut the team down to 53, then eventually your practice squad, you're getting rid of some guys that, you've developed relationships with, who've been a part of your team, and it's never easy. I don't care what anybody says. Like you never get to a point where you're just callous and don't think about the other individual. These are human beings. This is their dream. This is what they want to do for life in their lives. And you're telling them right now, hey, you're not making it. So it's tough. I'm pleased, where we're at. We've got work to do unequivocally. We're not by any means a finished product right now. But we've got a lot of work to do. We're young. We're young in some certain spots, which I think you all know. But it'll be fun to watch these guys grow and play together and grow as a team. All right, so now let's address the elephant, Jonathan, because I want to talk, and I want y'all to hear it, because I know you're going to have questions. Just so y'all know, and I want everybody to know, Jonathan is a well-respected and a really good human being and a damn good football player. I think we all know this. All right? Things like this happen. I tell every rookie that comes in, there's going to be a point when we disagree, and it's usually about money. And it's going to be hard. And just know that doesn't change my care level for you. I care deeply for Jonathan Taylor. I have great respect for Jonathan Taylor. Our relationship, I would tell you, is, look, even when it gets hard, I won't quit on the relationship. I won't do it. I think too much of the young man. I think too much of what he's given our organization and how hard he's played for us. And what sucks, the situation, I'm not going to sit here and give you some rosy picture like, oh, this is just, everything's okay. No, it sucks. It sucks for the Colts. It sucks for Jonathan Taylor. And it sucks for our fans. It does. And it's where we're at, and we've got to work through it. And we're going to do everything we can to work through it. Relationships are repairable. They're repairable. Like I don't, when guys get emotional and take a stance, you gotta have some, you gotta be able to work through those. If you ever in your life had a good friend, spouse, family member that you've had a disagreement with, and then you draw a line in the sand and say, this person's out of my life. Well, no. How do you do that? No, you work through it. And hopefully you come out the other side better because of it. All right? We got work to do. We do. We got work to do on the relationship. And we got work to do to find a solution to the problem, and what we're going to do. All right, now to answer some questions. Did we give him permission to seek a trade? Yes, we did. Yes, we did. I'm not going to get into the details of teams, what was offered and what wasn't offered. But what I'm going to tell you is Jonathan is valuable. And at the end of the day, we're not, I'm not just going to let him walk out the building. I'm not going to do that. That's not the best thing for the Colts and the organization. All right? As for the decision to put him on PUP, it's when you're still having effects from last year's surgery and still having pain and not 100%, we're not going to put a player on the field that's still complaining of pain in the ankle. We're not going to do that. an injury. I wouldn't do that to any player. Wouldn't treat anybody any differently. So what Jonathan will do is he will rehab his butt off and try to get himself ready to go. All right, time's yours. Fire away.
Chris, what you just said is opposite to what a team source said about the team not believing that Taylor is actually. Do you guys believe Jonathan Taylor is lying about his issues?
What I just told you was he still has pain in the ankle. Still has pain in the ankle.
Chris, do you feel like throughout the last several months, both offseason and more recently, do you feel like there's more you could have done to resolve this before it got to this point? And if so, any regrets? And it doesn't mean give him $30 million.
No. That's a fair question. It's a fair question, and I want to answer it because I've thought a lot about it. I mean, you know me. I especially when I know I'm, you know, you're hurting a guy you really care about, you know, because he trusts the relationship. That's hard. I felt I was very honest with all my discussions, and you know, I've thought through, you know, what we could have done differently. I'm sure both sides would probably tell you, man, I wish I'd have done something a little bit differently. But the one thing I do know is it doesn't do me any good, or anybody any good, to sit up and say, it's somebody else's fault. Or it's their, that's not productive. It's not productive. It does nobody. It doesn't help you find a solution. It doesn't.
Chris, will he rehab here?
Yes.
And will you still let his camp seek out trade offers? And
Yeah, I'm not going to get into trading. I'm not going to get into hypotheticals. I'm not going to get into that. You know, right now, Jonathan Taylor's a Colt.
Chris, you guys have been very generous with guys who go into the last year of their contract. Why is this different?
That's a good question. Here's what I will tell you. I think you can look this up. Like, we've given guys early extensions. We've given guys extension, you know, before they went into their 5th year. We've given guys extension who have played their contracts completely out and gone into free agency and signed them back. We've let guys go all 4 years, and then they ended up signing good contracts somewhere else. I think every situation's a little bit different. And I explained this during camp, you know, coming off last season, you know, that's tough. I mean, you won 4 games. You got a brand new coaching staff, all the circumstances surrounding it. So I think every situation is different.
Chris, the injury, the surgery, everything we know about it is routine. 7 months later, it doesn't feel routine. Is something going wrong in the rehab? Was it surgery or failure? Why are we still here?
I don't know if there's anything as a routine surgery. I think anytime you have surgery on your body, it's different. And I think everybody heals, rehab. I mean, everybody's different. Like, you can't just stamp one thing and say, okay, this guy's going to be. It's just everybody's different. There's guys that some get back faster, some guys don't.
And some of the public nature of the dispute standoff tweets from Jim Irsay, JT's agent, JT himself, has that affected any line of communication between both parties at all points?
Well, look, I've communicated consistently with Malky and Jonathan. I've definitely talked to my owner, who has great insight. I mean, look, he's been doing this a long time, and I think sometimes everybody gets a little emotional, and I don't think it does any of us any good right now to blame, point fingers. I just don't. I think that's not productive for what we need to get done going forward.
Is there any concern that some of the indications are that he doesn't want to be here? We don't know. That you've got a player here that may not want to be here and how it might impact the locker room or not?
No, look, you're always concerned. Look, this is the first time I've really dealt with this kind of. That's what's so. I'm disappointed because you know, we've never dealt with this before. That's why it sucks. Like, we've done a good job, you know, making sure communicating, making sure the player knew where they stood, what we were going to do going forward. So, you know, there's always a first. This happens from time to time. It's just something we work through. I will tell you this. Our guys in the locker room, and I give Shane a lot of credit, and I give our coaching staff a lot of credit, and they're dialed in and working and focused on what they need to do.
Chris, you talked about relationships and uniforms can change, but the relationships remain. Do you think he has an understanding about how much you care about him as a person, and knowing this is his career, but it's business is one thing and relationships are another?
Yeah, that's always the fine line. And I look for in as relationship oriented as I am, that's a, you know, sometimes I'll let it bleed into both sides of it. But like I said a minute ago, sometimes you disagree and you still can love and care about something. You can still care and love about something. You don't always have to agree. I think I told you all this at the end of the year conference, at my press conference at the end of the year, where, you know, it's in our country right now and anywhere, like you can't just disagree. You can't, because then if you disagree, you're totally wrong and you draw a line in the sand and then the relationship's broken. You know, I just, dang, how do you come to solutions that way? How do you come to a solution? How do you get to the root of the problem and fix it?
So have you talked to Jonathan since yesterday, and then just talk about fixing it? Okay, how do you fix it? If there's nothing changes, how do you fix it?
Yeah, well, I've not talked to, just to answer it, no, I've not talked to Jonathan. I've communicated with his agent. I will talk to Jonathan here in the next day or two. I know Shane's talked to Jonathan. That's something we're gonna work for. I'm not gonna sit here and say, well, okay, here, I got the magic answer right on. No, this is complex. And it's just something we gotta work through and find an answer.
Chris, do you view him as a part of your team's future?
I sure hope so. That's the way I look at it. I think he's a really good player. I think he's a great kid. I think he's great for the community. That would be the plan. I'm not gonna get into hypotheticals of yay or nay, but I don't want the indication that we don't want Jonathan Taylor. That is not true. And not true by any stat. I've never once even made that statement. I think one of the things that's, like the one thing that never gets mentioned, and maybe it's just because I've never really had the opportunity, but like everybody keeps bringing up the tag and the automatic, we never used it. We've never been in that situation to use it, but we've never used it. Even with guys at free agency yet, so.
That is a big concern of his, as you probably know. I think this is true that he offered to come in if you guys would take that off the table. Is that true? Did you guys have that discussion?
I never had, I never had that discussion about that. I mean, they asked if we would use it, and I said, well, it's a tool. Yeah, it is. It is a tool. It was CBA bargain, so I'm not, like the one thing, and I told Jonathan this, I said, I don't want to say something that is not true.
Right.
Like, I don't want to lead him down a path and say, okay, give it, and then he looks at me and says, well, you're a liar. No, you're not going to do that. You don't want to make false promises that you can't keep, especially with players, because the second you do it, you're done. Like, I know it looks not the best right now, but I know I've never lied to him.
You say
I know that for never lied to him.
you say you all want him, so why was it even an option or a discussion to allow him to see the trade in the first place?
Well, sometimes, I mean, that's fair. That's a fair question. Sometimes your both sides are beating your head against the wall, and you need to see what's out there. You need to see what's out there.
Understanding that every surgery is a little different, it still seems just shocking that 7 months later, he's not able to get out there. So I guess, how confident are you in your medical staff that they can figure this situation out?
Yeah, I'm confident. I'm confident they can.
Chris,
You think he's close?
if he's hurt, why were other teams apparently willing to make a deal for him?
I think because he's a 24-year-old running back, and even though he might not be ready for a little bit, he's still 24 years old and got a bright career in front of him.
Chris, you guys reportedly made an offer to Kareem Hunt. What does that say about your franchise and how much you stress eye care?
What I will tell you, he's been in the league a while. He, of course, I'm not going to get into specifics on what we did and what we didn't do, but I think our track record there is pretty good, Kevin. I mean, I'll never forget when we got slammed for one player we took, and he ended up being a really good member of this community. So I think our track record, any guy we bring into this building, we vet, and assuredly, we're gonna do everything we can. We're not gonna be 100% perfect, but I think our track record is pretty good.
Chris, with that and Jonathan's status, do you need to bring in a running back for the room just because?
We're working through it. We're hopeful with with Moss. We're hopeful to get him back really soon. We like what Dion has done. We think Dion has taken another step. We like Hall. And we're gonna have some guys on the practice squad we like also. That's the, this is the shame of, because this has dominated the month, but it's overshadowed some of the really good things that have gone on. It's overshadowed, Bernard and the steps he's taken. It's overshadowed what some of these young corners, and they're young, but a guy like Jones, a 7th round pick, that our scout, Anthony Coughlin, fought like a dog for us to take. I'm not gonna sit here and lie to you. I mean, I had my doubts, but Anthony pressed, and we took him, and Anthony was right. He was right. This kid is gonna be good, like really freaking good. And, it's overshadowed all these other stories that are going on. We got a young quarterback that we're excited about that is showing really good promise. So that's what you'd like to be up here talking about.
Chris, do you see any scenario where Jonathan Taylor plays with the Colts again?
Of course there is. Of course.
Has the team's position changed though? Jim said that you guys did not plan on offering him a contract at all until after this year. Has the team's position changed on that at all?
I'm not gonna get into contract stuff. I never do, so y'all should be pretty good with that answer.
Has JT himself given any indication he's going to be willing to play for the Colts in the future?
We'll keep working through it.
You made this decision to not trade him with some real ambiguity about how this is going to play out. Is that a fair statement? And if so, why were you willing to take that chance, I guess? That
You
makes sense.
either stand for something or you stand for nothing. It's a balance between doing the right thing, the best thing you can for the player, but at the end of the day, doing the best thing you can for the organization and the team. It's a balance. We got to, at the end of the day, have a job to do and do the best thing for our team and organization.
So the easy thing would have been to just dump it and move on. But that's not what's best for the team.
Nope.
You often talk about how the locker room knows as far as who gets paid and what it takes. So how much do you think about just the messages sent to the players about how difficult it is to get an extension here with all this going on?
I think why don't you go ask him? I'm serious. Go ask Brian Kelly. Go ask all the other guys in that locker room. Go ask them. We've extended a bunch. Okay, and we've done them all at different time levels. Quentin Nelson went all the way into his 5th season. We're about to start the season. Everybody's a little bit different. Every situation's a little bit different. To sit here and say and try to make a statement that we don't take care of our players, don't agree with that at all.
In the end, Chris, why was the deal not made? What was the issue? To the extent that you can share.
I think I've been pretty clear with the way the season went. I talked about all this at training camp. The way the season went, where we were at, and where we were going forward. New coaching staff. We had some reasons. Nothing major, but there was reasons. We thought we needed to just sit tight.
Oh, I'm sorry, maybe that I wasn't clear. Why wasn't a deal made yesterday? For JT. Why didn't it never?
Yeah, I kind of stated that when I opened up. I'm not going to get into details of why and what was offered or where we're at. At the end of the day, he is a really good player, and if somebody was going to trade for him, I think that needs to be valued correctly.
Chris, what went into cutting Gary's rush?
Oh, that's a good question. That was hard. Jalen Jones.
Could you cut up?
We'd had to keep 7 corners, so it'd have been tough. Kenny Moore, we think's had a great camp. Tony Brown, I love. Let me just make this known. I love Tony Brown. That dude competes. He's a great teammate. He's all in. And then you have Baker. We have Dallas. I mean, all these guys that have all come in and played really good, football and have really good upside, and they're all young. Juju's coming along. I do want to talk about Juju because I do think the upside is really high. He missed the spring with a wrist, and then he had a hamstring early, so it's been a little bit slow here. But the 2 weeks he was, in, we're excited about him. He kind of got a little tweak again, so we're trying to get our head around making sure we got him right for the long haul. But no, look, it just happened to be a group that's young and talented, and nothing against Darius. Wish him the best. I know he was claimed. Wish him the best. That went back and forth with him earlier about it. He's very talented, but it was a good group.
It's also on the contract year, Grover Stewart. So is it just an organizational standpoint where, again, like extensions and those things kind of have to wait till you figure out what direction this team is going in?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys that are up that are going to be up and working on the last year. So I think we just, we work for it. I don't ever talk about contracts, where we're going. Those things work out over time, and you'll know whenever they happen, usually.
Chris, I don't want to step on.
Go ahead.
Looking at the rest of the offense, you're missing JT right now. You only have 3 receivers on this roster. What gives you confidence that you are giving Anthony Richardson the pieces he needs to be successful this season?
Well, 3 is because we're doing roster mechanic stuff. I still think Michael Pittman's a pretty good football player. I still think Alex Pierce has upside and is a pretty good football player. And we really like Josh Downs. We'll get the rest of it filled out. We're excited about Ogletree. I think our thoughts on Ogletree. We've always thought highly. It was a big loss last year. We think Mallory, that was exciting to see, him get healthy and show the flashes that he showed. Granson, Granson's a good football player. Every staff that's come in and every quarterback that's come in has liked him. So it's I know the world paints a bleak picture here, but I don't think it's as bleak as the world makes it out to be.
What gives you confidence that Anthony can handle the ups and downs of being the full season starter?
He's a pretty cool customer. I stayed on the sidelines this year, which I've done a lot, but I've done it more. I just wanted to feel it and feel him, which look, when he takes off and runs, you can feel it. But he doesn't it's fun. I mean, look, and he's going to have moments, of course. I mean, they all do when they're young, but he is really poised. Even after a bad play, he has really got some poise to him that's unique. Look, there's going to be ups and downs. We know it. Everybody in this room knows it. I know it. Everybody knows it. But you got to keep stepping up and learning from every situation, the good ones and the bad ones, and keep moving forward.
Chris, the O-line depth, really inexperienced bunch. Any concern there? Obviously, Danny going down, I know.
Yeah, it stunk, man. It sucked for Danny Penner, man. He's one of the really good dudes and really good players and was having a hell of a game and had a really couple good weeks of practice. So that stunk for him. We think so we've claimed a couple guys that we think are help. I think we got 11 now on the roster. We feel better about where it's at and where we're going with it. They are young, but how do they become vets? I mean, they got to play. So, you want to line up a bunch of vets. You can do that, but I just it's easier when especially on the O-line. And we've got a couple guys that have been around, but I just think I got a lot of faith in Tony and how he coaches them and what he's doing. These guys have talent. You just got to grow with them.
I think the version of this maybe was asked, so I apologize, but on JT, one last point. Do you see any inconsistency at all where, I know you don't want to talk about particulars of the trade, but you did clearly ask for a lot of compensation because you value him, you said. And on the other hand, you elected to not extend the contract now, as you have for your other all-pro level players. Is there any inconsistency there at all, do you feel like? And you stated your reasons why, but just that particular thing.
Same reasons I've stated. In terms of compensation, I think there's a history of it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a history of what some of these guys have been traded for. One in particularly not long ago that was really good. And then in terms of the contract, I'm not going to get in depth about that. Just not.
Do you feel like this
See more here?
This stunts Anthony's growth at all? not having Jonathan? Do you think that stunts Anthony's growth or hinders his early development, not having Jonathan next to him?
Well, sure, look, when you don't have a great player, I mean, but I don't think it stunts his growth. No, not at all.
Doesn't help, but.
Hey, but it doesn't, I mean, I don't know. Did it stunt Andrew's growth without a special back?
Was there anything you learned about Shane Steichen just through how he's run training camp that you didn't know before?
He's all, I mean, I've said this a million times, he's all ball now, which I love about him. And he's not a panicker. Here's what's really like, he's got a real creative mind of how to use the pieces, okay? So whatever a player's strengths are, he's gonna do everything he can to put him in position to do that. No, look, I mean, look, Shane's the first time head coach, and I think he's handled it, really well. He's been great with the team, great with the coaching staff, great with the players, honest, working to get them better. That's what you can ask for.
You talked about the offensive lineman that you picked up on waiver claims. What about Isaiah Lynn? Inspired you to bring him in?
Yeah, well, look, anytime you got a chance to, we wanted to add some speed off the edge, another guy, and he's a guy we really liked in the draft, and just for whatever reason, we just didn't get a chance, and he ended up going undrafted and ended up in Dallas, showed us enough that we said, okay, now let's take a shot and get him in here. We don't know when he'll be ready. Look, his head coach in college, Willie Simmons, is a good friend and a good guy, and just like been beating on the table for telling us what he thinks his potential is. So we'll see. We'll get him in here tomorrow and start working with him, see what we can develop.
And you mentioned that you don't really feel like the sky is falling with regards to the wide receiver group. So did that play a reason why you didn't pick up any wideouts on the waiver claim? Or there's some other guys that you're looking at? I know you're not gonna say names.
Yeah, we got a ways to go. I mean, yeah, we're doing some roster mechanic stuff right now. So
Nick Cross had a pretty big summer. We haven't talked to you since then. What's your evaluation of it versus last year? 'Cause it was a pretty big summer.
really happy for him. It's not his fault. He was 20 years old when we drafted him. We forget that sometimes. They're young, and then we put these, and look, this is where I screwed it up. Like, I was so excited about him. I put the expectations out there on him, and then he's, just came a little overwhelming for him last year, and he didn't quite perform. And then to watch him work, mentally be able to battle and handle it, and then play free safety, strong safety, nickel, and then, really perform pretty well. No, we're excited about where Nick is at and where he's going.
All right, let's do one more here.
Last time we spoke to you, you said the running back market is what it is. How much do you think the running back position in particular, when it comes to JT's contract negotiations or discussions you all have had, has factored into what he wants or what you think is fair on both sides?
Let me say this.
The running back position.
The running back market is what it is, but you pay. I've said this all along. Like, Quentin Nelson didn't have a problem playing a guard a lot of money, which other people don't either. Like, when guys are having great seasons and have a chance to really help your football team, absolutely. I mean, the running market is what it is, but look, great players are what they are too. So I think that all works. I think there's a.
So in that case, so JT's a great player, well, why not pay him?
We won 4 games last year. We won 4 games.
All right. How about that? Chris Ballard, he held on to the money line until the very end. The last thing that he said, that's the important thing. This team won 4 games last year. No, but who's valuable on a 4-win team? That's a great question. And we knew about the wide receiver thing, right? The wide receiver deal, that's a work in progress with the roster. There's roster mechanics going on. They're not going to open the season with 3 wide receivers on the active roster. That's crazy. What's going to happen with Jonathan Taylor? I think I've been pretty consistent the entire time. I didn't think he was going to be traded. I don't think he's going to be traded. I think all this works out some way or another, and Jonathan Taylor winds up playing football for the Indianapolis Colts. Now, whether Colts fans are going to enjoy that or not, that's an entirely different conversation to have. But I think that the Colts and Jonathan Taylor are going to find a way to get this thing back together, and Chris Ballard's going to be a part of it. Relationships are a big deal with Chris Ballard. Whether that's good or bad, that's a different conversation. I don't think it's terribly good, but I think that Chris Ballard is a pretty good guy who wears hats. He likes to wear more than one. One, he's the general manager, and he does not indulge in relationships getting in the way of business. The other, he puts on that person that you got to have relationships. It's the reward of the business. It's the reward of the position. Chris Ballard, interesting stuff, but he buried the money line to the very end, didn't he?